I'm Lucie Fink, and this week is 5 days of gut health. Happy December, everyone, and welcome back to Refinery29's YouTube channel. If you're new here, be sure to click on the little subscribe button in the corner now, and give this video a thumbs up if you're excited to learn about the gut. We are rounding out 2018 with a video topic that's been very important to me over the past year. As many of you know, in 2017, I had a cholecystectomy or gallbladder removal surgery. I have a whole video about that entire journey on my personal YouTube channel, so definitely check that out after this. Ever since the surgery, I've now gone back to a completely normal diet. My digestive system is functioning a-okay. But before and just after that surgery, you really need to watch what you eat. Without a functioning gallbladder to produce and store your bile, you might not be able to digest food that well. So ever since that operation, I've been learning a ton more about nutrition and in particular, how to take care of my gut. To start off this episode, I'm gonna get a little bit scientific on you. First and foremost, the big question of the day. What is gut health? Your gut is your entire gastrointestinal system. It's a muscular tube running from your mouth to your anus. Okay, I promise I'm not gonna be silly. This is science. And inside of this digestive tract, there are trillions of bacteria or microbes. So when people use the term gut microbiome, they're referring to all of the different strains of good bacteria that reside in there. Bacteria that can help with your digestion, your immune system's function, and so much more. Another major component of gut health is the gastrointestinal barrier or the GI barrier. This is the mucosal barrier inside of our intestines that needs to simultaneously allow nutrients to be absorbed into the bloodstream while still blocking harmful organisms or pathogens from getting in. There is so much more science that I could get into up front here, but instead I'm going to show you what I did on Monday. Remember the little SCOBY baby that I grew last month during 5 days of trying new skills? After letting it grow and grow, it was finally time for the second fermentation process, so we're now one step closer to having kombucha. Because of the fermentation process that takes place, when you're drinking kombucha, you're essentially drinking some live bacteria, and the good kind. According to a Refinery29 article, there's no great evidence to suggest that kombucha will cure you of anything, but there is some research that suggests getting more of those bacteria in your diet may be beneficial for your digestion and your mental health. The first step here was brewing a fresh batch of organic black tea. I dissolved white sugar in it and then let it cool to room temperature. I poured that mixture into a gallon-sized glass jar. It was large. And then it was time to pull out my SCOBY. Side note, you have to keep everything squeaky clean throughout this entire process, so I washed my hands multiple times and also sterilized everything in boiling water. My SCOBY had been in the cabinet for a couple of months and it grew so large that it had multiple layers, and eventually it got so heavy that the SCOBY sunk and another SCOBY formed on top of that one. So when I ultimately pulled them out, I was pulling out 3 giant slimy SCOBYs. I picked the one that I liked best and dropped it in the jar, and then I set the other 2 SCOBYs aside to add to my friend's SCOBY hotel. I added 2 cups of the previous liquid, which is known as the starter liquid. Then I covered the jar with a kombucha cloth and set it in the dark in the cabinet. Ugh. Good luck, little kombucha. It's now gonna take at least another week for this big batch to ferment, but once it's ready, I'll be adding some flavors, bottling it up, and finally filling my gut up with good bacteria.
It's no walk in the park to make your own booch.
I started to touch on fermentation with Monday's kombucha, so Tuesday was all about diving deeper into fermented foods. Mary Carlin, the author of Mastering Fermentation, defines fermented foods as foods that go through a chemical change caused by enzymes produced by bacteria, microbes, or yeast. Fermentation increases the amount of certain vitamins in the final food product, and also when you eat fermented foods, you're consuming that good bacteria and sending them straight to your gut. If you've taken antibiotics for any reason, while they might have succeeded at getting rid of the bad bacteria inside of you, they also might have wiped out the good strains of bacteria. So eating fermented foods is a great way to replenish that good bacteria. On Tuesday, I tried making one of the most well-known fermented foods, sauerkraut. I pulled the outer leaves off of some green cabbage, then I cored the cabbage and shredded it into strips. I added caraway seeds, sea salt, and grated ginger, and then with clean hands, I dove right in there and started massaging the mixture until the cabbage got softer and some juices started coming out. After about 10 minutes, I packed it all into a sterilized mason jar, and then I covered it with those outer leaves just to make sure that it was airtight in there, and I sealed it all with a fermentation lid. There's a lot of science behind what's happening in that jar, but essentially, there's natural bacteria on the cabbage, and that bacteria is digesting the natural sugars in the cabbage. And as they digest those sugars, they're producing carbon dioxide and organic acids. Eventually, the environment in that jar is going to become too acidic for the bad bacteria to thrive, so good bacteria will develop in its place. I stuck this jar in another dark place in my cabinet, and the fermentation process will take place over the course of about 3 days. If you want to try making some fermented foods at home, there are so many options for you out there, and there are recipes on every corner of the internet. Sauerkraut is a quick and easy one, but there's also homemade yogurt, kimchi, sourdough, and so much more. By Wednesday, I realized that I'd been exploring many of the food-related aspects of gut health, but I hadn't yet checked out some of the lifestyle aspects. Johns Hopkins University, my school, put out an article about various ways to support your gut health aside from just eating the right foods. And 3 of their major players were get more sleep, move more, and manage your stress. So on Wednesday, I spent the whole day following some idealistic lifestyle rituals that are recommended for improved gut health. The first thing I did was ditch my morning coffee. I've actually heard both pros and cons about coffee when it comes to gut health. So on the one hand, many people say it's dehydrating and people tend to feel like their stomach is gurgling after they drink it. But on the other hand, coffee is a fermented drink. So I'm just assuming different people react differently to it, but by all means, if you know more, please share with the class. So instead of coffee, I made myself a turmeric latte, which I thought was perfect because of turmeric's powerful anti-inflammatory properties. I mixed almond milk, turmeric, honey, fresh ginger, and ground pepper in a blender, and then poured the drink into a saucepan over the stovetop to steam it. When it was ready, I used my electric frother to make it a little extra foamy like a latte, and then I turned my phone off and began the day with some morning meditation. According to another Refinery29 article, studies have shown that meditation can help us build our mental resilience against stress, and it's something that I've actually been working to include into my life daily. I've heard that staying hydrated is an important way to keep your gut happy, so I filled up a big reusable water bottle and then got ready for tip number 6, moving. I did a few quick exercises at home to get my heart pumping, which is a great way to release endorphins and start the day with a little bit of sweat. And in the evening on Wednesday, I got into bed nice and early. I read a little bit of my book about happiness, and then I turned the lights off before 10. One thing I loved about Wednesday is that I really felt like I was having such a healthy and positive day. But when I actually look back at the things that I did that day, I realized that these are pretty easy activities to include in my everyday life. And listen, I get that everyone's schedule is different, and you might not be able to live your ideal health day every single day, but you can start slowly by adding some of these things into your life, and eventually it might become second nature to you. Let's talk about the gut-brain connection. A lot of people refer to the gut as the second brain. The enteric nervous system, or the layers of nerve cells that line our GI tracts, is the nervous system that regulates our digestion and communicates with our brains. There have actually been a lot of studies linking gut health to mental health. But the truth is, this area is still being heavily studied, and it's not entirely clear to us just yet how the two work together. The director of the Johns Hopkins Center for Neurogastroenterology says that for decades, doctors and researchers have thought that anxiety and depression contributed to issues like IBS, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, and more. But he also says that some more studies might be showing that it's also the other way around, and perhaps digestive issues can contribute to us feeling more anxious or depressed. In a Refinery29 article, they cite a study that shows how the bacteria in your gut can actually affect the molecules in the area of the brain that is associated with anxiety and depression. When I started doing research for this episode, one topic that continually came up was bone broth. I've now heard many nutritionists gush about bone broth, explaining how it's packed with minerals and also with collagen, which can help improve your hair, skin, nails, and joints. But there's also been some evidence that collagen can positively impact your gut health. I began exploring bone broth a bit this summer, and I first started by visiting some of those bone broth shops that have been popping up around New York. But one thing I hadn't tried yet was making my own bone broth at home from scratch. So on Thursday, I followed Wellness Mama's recipe for homemade bone broth. I found the beef bones really easily at Whole Foods, and I first roasted them to bring out the flavor. Then I let them sit in water and apple cider vinegar for 30 minutes before I added the chopped up vegetables and spices. I brought the mixture to a boil, and then I let it simmer on low heat for about 8 hours. When it was done, I skimmed the impurities off the top. I set some aside in a glass container to put in the freezer for later, and I used the rest of it to make soup for dinner. So I sauteed some vegetables and mixed them in with the bone broth. Then I added a heaping serving of ramen noodles and a couple of hard-boiled eggs to the top. I don't know if it looks as amazing as it tasted, but it was a giant bowl of dinner, and it was delicious. The final lesson of the week is understanding probiotics versus prebiotics. Probiotics are live bacteria found in certain foods and supplements that help add to the good bacteria in your gut microbiome. You've likely heard of people taking a probiotic supplement before, and essentially they're just hoping to add to the good bacteria that's already in there. And prebiotics, however, are non-digestible food ingredients that act as the food for the good bacteria in your gut. You can find prebiotics in foods that have fiber, like garlic, onion, whole wheat pasta, asparagus, and sweet potatoes. So one is the bacteria themselves, and the other is the food that feeds the bacteria. The wider range of plant foods that you eat, the more types of bacteria you're feeding, and the more diverse your gut microbiome will be. I found a few recipes online for probiotic smoothies, and I made one of them on Friday. I chose a peanut butter berry recipe, which called for blueberries, peanut butter, flax seeds, vanilla extract, ground cinnamon, and the big ticket item, kefir. Kefir is a fermented yogurt-like drink that's filled with probiotics. It's kind of sour tasting, but if you like the taste of Greek yogurt, you'll probably like this too. Probiotics are a very interesting topic because supposedly many of the probiotics on the market right now are made with strains of bacteria that just can't withstand the heat of your stomach acid. So that means they would die in your stomach before they even get to your intestines. Some people believe that spore-forming probiotics are a better choice because they're hardier and they can supposedly withstand that heat. So if you're interested in learning more about this, I would highly recommend you do some research into a brand called Silver Fern. They're definitely on the expensive side, but they claim that their bacteria can survive and thrive in your gut, and it's gotten great reviews from many of the health and wellness bloggers that I follow. I love this week because I feel like I got to try so many new things, but I also learned so much that I'm so excited to share with you all. If you already have some gut health issues, there are so many things out there that you can do to try to help heal your gut. And even if your gut is totally fine and it's already functioning pretty well, it's still great to learn how to maintain that health. If you have any more tips and insights related to gut health, please share them in the comments section below, and let me know what you want to see me try next time on Try Living with Lucie. See you next year. Hey YouTube, thanks for watching this episode. Click here to watch another 5-day challenge video, here to subscribe to Refinery29 on YouTube, and right here for my personal YouTube channel. Happy New Year, everyone!